Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the All-Star Wrestling Review Series for the 20th of December, 1980. So we're going to cross into 1981 today, and we'll have about 60 more episodes after that, but then we'll be moving on to a new series. Anyhow, we got over 1,800 audios available for your listening pleasure. Lots of cool stuff worth checking out in any event. Would love to be of assistance if there's a new series you'd like to see covered. Would love to hear about that as well. Again, moving towards the 1220 edition, the Moondogs, Captain Lou Albano, defeat Rick McGraw and Steve King, 844. Moondog King pins Steve King with a splash. Early in the bout, Albano accidentally sets his shirt on fire while smoking a cigar. I assume this is a sight gag, but the idea of Albano being daft enough to light himself on fire is kind of interesting. Of course, the Moondogs in 1981 do eventually become your tag team champions, but Rick McGraw and Steve King, kind of a backward step for King in some ways, in the sense that certainly, King, or a backward step for McGraw, rather, in that King is primarily an enhancement talent, has been for the last several years in the area, and so the idea of the Moondogs, Rex and King, taking over on Steve King, no relation, by the way. King, a very common last name for wrestlers, apparently. Anyway, I knew a Steve King when I did commentary back in the day. I actually did commentary with him. But anyhow, totally different guy. And this Steve King and Moondog King are certainly different by far. Anyway, so lots of punch kick, and the Moondogs continue to be an unstoppable force, which Albano seems to like. The babyfaces do come in together and kind of do some double teams, very basically backdrop by McGraw. McGraw, though, unable to rest his adversary in a rough way. Of course, the cigar with Albano adds extra flavor to the match. Moondogs are not going to be a team that a lot of people enjoy, and they're watered down versus the Memphis Moondogs, where they're allowed to use weaponry and stuff. Certainly, the Moondogs are fine, but at the same time, they're also not exactly a team that is going to inspire, this amazing deal. One of them goes for a splash, gets a victory over Steve King, and kind of there we go. We move to another in the heel. This is a heel heavy show. In this particular instance, we've got Killer Khan out there in the next match. Killer Khan defeating Mike Schmidt, 334 with a jumping knee drop. And again, Killer Khan, who has been both managed by Captain Lou Albano as a substitution in primarily Fred Blassie. Here and there. Punch, kick, and very basic offense for Khan. Khan, again, primarily here for his run with Andre the Giant and the broken ankle angle that comes about in the weeks and months to come here. Khan, of course, with the punch, kick mentality, then goes to the top rope for the knee drop, trying to get an advantage there. Interview with Pat Patterson and Pedro Morales. Basically, Pedro is likened for having three things in this interview by Pat Patterson: a hot temper, liking lots of different types of food, and wanting to be the world champion again. Goofy that Patterson would ask if he wants to be champion again, at least to me. I mean, who wouldn't want to be world champion? And if you don't want to be world champion, why are you there? Anyway, Pedro steps into the ring for a regular match. He's been pretty consistent over the last 6 months or so as a main force. We'll see why in the weeks to come here, but certainly, kind of an interesting run there. Pedro Morales defeats Silvano Souza with submission. Boston Crab, 709. Punch kick style, as mentioned with Morales before. Not exactly a guy who you're going to get a whole ton out of in terms of heavy maneuvering and that. Arm bars, arm locks, and the like. Basically, Souza, who is a New England standout, but also a guy who's been doing enhancement work for several years, sells well for Morales. Morales doesn't need a whole lot of help in that area because his offense is pretty basic. Arm bars, chin locks, hammer locks, and the like. Nothing worth writing home about by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, the crowd is solidly behind the former 1973 world champion. That's kind of there. And again, he gets the roll up and the win does Pedro Morales, your former world champion. We move to another in the series of matches. This one, once again, being a little, I guess you'd say a little bit different, although not too terribly much, in the nature of the, let's see here. Um, Tag team champions Rick Martel, Tony Gurria, Jose Estrada, and Johnny Rods. Rods and Estrada are, as we all know, regular um, regular enhancement talents and occasional tag team. They've tagged over the past couple of years a few times. Never a sustained tag title run, although maybe they're going in that direction or using them around the horn that way. Gurria and Martel, of course, your tag team champions. They've been featured a lot over the past several months, specifically since winning the titles. Double teams by Roz and Estrada. Gurria does the majority of selling during the early part of the match. Gurria ends up being the reason they win, but does the majority of selling. His leg gets worked over for several minutes here, and again, giving them, close to 8 or 9 minutes of television time for this contest is pretty notable. The heels cut the ring off on Gurria several times. Gurria with arm ringers, arm bars, attempted atomic drops, doesn't get everything he wants on his offensive maneuvers, but gets enough to control things pretty aggressively, assertively here. In any event, we do move forward to the I guess you'd say, modified enhancement match. The Coco one of the enhancement guys against the returning Hulk Hogan. Of course, Hogan wearing the purple robe, Mr. Andrews, and again Hogan in all white, an all white singlet. Just an odd thing to see Hulk Hogan in a singlet, but anyway, sends him into the buckle punch kick and Freddie Blassie on the outside. Blassie very happy with that whole thing, and the body slam and the axe bomber lariat by Hogan for the win. Hogan has been a major force, and eventually Hogan gets him up across the back with the backbreaker, gaining the win in the close of the contest and closing this particular edition of this program for the End Point. We'll be back with more right after this.